Hi, this is Mary, your holistic recovery coach. Today I wanted to talk about a recovery concept. It's really sort of a saying or this idea that your disease is doing push-ups in the parking lot. Okay, so have you ever heard that saying, your alcoholism or your addiction is doing push-ups in the parking lot? Where does that saying come from? Let's take a look at it. What's the benefits of that? And how accurate is it really? Okay. So this saying comes from the idea that really from kind of 12-step programs. Let's say you're in a meeting, you're sitting in an AA, NA, whatever meeting, and usually there's a parking lot somewhere outside. And so while you're sitting in a meeting, that means you're sober at that time. You are working on your recovery. Yet while you're doing that, this, as the saying suggests, that your disease is out in the parking lot at the same time, working out, getting stronger, right? Um, so, okay, first of all, literally, we know that's not true. It's sort of like some of the other sayings that I've talked about in other videos where it makes it sound like your disease is its own entity and it's sort of like almost like another person. It's out there, it's doing something else, or it has its own thoughts and ideas. And obviously, that's not literally true, right? But what is this saying suggesting, or what is this idea about? It's really just about this idea that perhaps even while you're sober and in recovery, that your disease is still progressing, and that it progresses. Um, it progresses even as you are staying sober. What does that mean? Again, it has this idea that it's separate from us, so that our disease can continue to progress even as while we are in sobriety, in recovery. We've arrested the physical aspect of the illness. We've arrested the 10%, if you will, the 10% meaning like the active abuse of the substance. Okay, the 90% of the 90% being the thinking that now we're working on in recovery. So this idea is that the disease itself is still progressive. Now, we know, and I've talked about it in other videos, about the progressive and fatal nature of alcoholism and addiction. But is it really still progressing somehow while we're staying sober? And that's what this saying or this concept seems to suggest. Okay, I think from a physiological standpoint, it's not literal either. When, let's take alcoholism specifically. Okay, if I have a physical allergy, I physiologically have a different response. I break down alcohol and respond to it in a different way than a non-alcoholic person. Okay, is that physiological allergy mechanism getting worse my entire life, whether or not I'm in recovery, and activating the active part of the disease? I don't believe so. That doesn't really make sense to me. I think it's just, I think of it more as there's something physiologically that's, that's altered or broken or different, if you will. Again, just different genetically in an alcoholic, and that remains as is. It's just, you have that allergy, you have that different physiological response. Now, why would we have this saying that suggests that the disease is doing push-ups in the parking lot? I think, what it gets down to is it's figuratively, it's symbolically, it's to keep us vigilant. I think it's really about promoting the idea of vigilance, meaning being aware that no matter how much work we do on ourselves and how spiritually fit we get, how sober we get, how well we are in our recovery, the disease itself, being an alcoholic or an addict, it's always there, meaning it's kind of like a disease that's in remission. It can be reactivated. And if we are to reactivate it, meaning by, as an alcoholic, starting to drink again, picking up that first drink, well, that would be reactivating an active addiction. And that, if that is to happen after a period of sobriety, this saying suggests that, to expect that your disease has gotten even stronger, that it has continued to progress, even though you arrested it for a little while, that you had it inactivated for a while, that physical part of the illness. Okay, whether or not that's true, I think that what is true is, and where the saying probably comes from, is the experience of many, many people in recovery who did experience a relapse, picking up the substance, the alcohol, after a period of abstinence, a period of sobriety. And time again, experience overall in general dictates that it's pretty true that people usually experience that it has gotten worse, meaning they had an active addiction, they stayed sober for a bit, they picked up, and the idea is that their active state, their active alcoholism, the way their life and their drinking and the consequence of it, the feelings of it, physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, have gotten worse. And usually what they say is that their drinking was worse when they relapsed after that period of sobriety than it was. Basically it's worse. They picked up not where they left off, okay? Meaning the progression of their disease. It wasn't exactly how it was when they stopped. It's actually worse now. That's the experience of most people after having a period of sobriety and then relapsing. So it seems as if their disease was doing push-ups in the parking lot, just, getting stronger and ready in training, so to speak, for when they were to pick up again. And then it would be as strong as ever, if not stronger, is the, what's being implied here. I think what is actually going on is, or more likely from a practical standpoint, is that, well, a few different things. A, when you've been sober for a period of time and then you pick up, well, what happens? Well, your tolerance is at basically at zero again, right? There's no built up tolerance to that substance. So certainly your body's going to react in a more sensitive way than it did, the last time that you drank, because it hasn't had that substance for so long, and there's no tolerance built up there. So there's going to be more of an extreme, more profound, if you will, reaction to the substance being reintroduced into our physical system. So physiologically, we're going to be more sensitive again. Certainly, you see this in the tragic example of people who have been in treatment and maybe have been clean for a little while after they get out of like a residential treatment, a detox, and a rehabilitation situation for other types of drugs in addition to or other than alcohol, where overdosing is a common threat, a common risk. And we see overdoses happen a lot, very, tragically. And often it's because they go back and they go out. When they go out, they pick up the person who had been abstinent for a little while, even maybe only a month or months, they had been abstinent, and they go out and they get they get whatever that substance is, and it takes less to have such a strong impact. And so they go out and they have as big a dose maybe as they used to have, and it's just too much. And and again, obviously with drugs, you don't always know exactly what you're getting, but with alcohol as well. So people could have alcohol poisoning, where, drinking maybe the same amount that they did during one of the last times they drank before getting sober. So anyway, so that's just to say that our system gets more sensitive again. So the tolerance is lower. That's the physical part. Now you've also got the mental part, right? So the mental part, let's remember that denial is the primary kind of mental state, if you will, that perpetuates staying in that alcoholic, addictive cycle. So if we can deny and not be in reality about the fact that we have a problem, or that we can control it, then the process continues. So denial really kind of enables us to stay mentally in that state, in that state of active addiction. So the denial is it's harder to maintain, I think, when someone has already had a period of sobriety or recovery, because it had been broken, the awareness had gotten in, we had that information, and then what happens? Well, for whatever reason, you lose your recovery, you pick up, you're in a relapse, and chances are, even though you're back in that state and there's some denial there, obviously, there's also, it's hard to get rid of that, as they say, that head full of AA. For example, let's say you were in AA and then you relapsed. I think there's another saying that says something like, having a belly full of booze and a head full of AA. And that's miserable because it's like you knew recovery, recovery is possible. You've been sober, you've had sobriety, and yet for whatever reason, you took that giant step backwards, and now you're drinking again, and it's hard to sustain kind of mentally that, oh, everything's fine, or and think that you don't have a problem. So it's I hate to put it this way, but people say it's not really fun anymore. It's not so fun when the reality of it is that really you're engaging in that active alcoholism, which is just going to lead to bad things, right? As we've talked about in other videos. So so physically, that explains that. Physically and mentally, there are some practical explanations for why this saying, this concept is somewhat accurate. And then emotionally, right? So again, emotionally, you've had a period of sobriety, now you've gone out, now you're relapsing. Well, emotionally, what's going on during active addiction is usually a whole cycle of having feelings you don't want to feel, and you want to run from or numb or hide or suppress, and using that substance to kind of drink them down, and escape and go change your mood and put yourself in a different place. And then of course you keep coming back to them because you're not resolving them. So they're still there the next day, or, the next time you kind of come to. And yet this time, perhaps they're even sort of bigger, stronger, or more profound, because in addition to whatever you're running and hiding from, or whatever emotional things you have going on, negative emotions you don't want to feel, now you have the additional ones of shame, guilt, remorse around having lost your sobriety, and maybe fears about facing that, and what are people going to say, or how do I even go back? And I think that the shame and the guilt around that, the shame of that often keeps people from seeking recovery again. It's like the ego creeps back in, and you're more concerned about saving your face than your ass, so to speak. And that with more shame and more negative emotions, that propels more drinking, right? When you're in that state. So that makes it seem worse. Again, it seems like, okay, it's not as bad as when you first got into recovery. Now it's worse than before. So these are just a few thoughts that I have around this, and why it actually does make sense, that saying that of course isn't literally accurate, but the disease is out in the parking lot doing push-ups. Okay, so basically think of it as, the disease never goes away, but we have recovery, we have resources that when we're working on ourselves, we can keep that active disease at bay. And while you can't surgically or magically remove the allergy, the genetic propensity towards addiction, how your body responds differently, and your mind, and all of those different things that are accurate and true, and the reality of that needing to just accept that is just something that you will have forever. The good news is, again, that where you do have power is, as long as you don't pick up and activate that active part of the illness, then that other, if you will, if that's the 10%, so to speak, then the 90%, we have all these different, there's so many different paths to recovery and different programs and tools and resources and support that can help you work on that other 90%, which when we're working on that, and it helps us kind of get back in balance and get your self-esteem back and live in a more balanced state, then you're less triggered and less likely to go relapse. And if you have relapsed, you always can get off that elevator that's going down, at any floor, at any time, ask for help, and start the process. And for the first time, or for the second, third, fourth, whatever time, if you've relapsed. So with that, I've gone long enough. I see that the sun is coming down and hit me where it didn't when I started. So I have said enough on this topic. If you have any comments, Any comments, anything to add to the discussion, please comment below the video. If you have ideas for other topics, also leave a comment, let me know. Feel free to like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel so you see when other videos come out. And please share it with anyone that you think might find it helpful or would like to participate in this dialogue. So have a great 24 hours ahead.